Good morning, Year 12. Welcome to your second assembly for this week. I hope you did all tune in to the celebration assembly yesterday. If you haven't, after you've watched this, do go and check it out. It's a bit of fun, a bit of light enjoyment to finish off the half term from all the hard work you've been doing over the last half term and the term previously. Lots of subject awards being given out and also some special messages from your tutors. Today's assembly, I want to go back to sort of a more serious note, but a serious note in that we're trying to provide as much support and information to you as we can. And this is going to give you a bit more information about what is happening next half term. The big focus is based around assessments for you. I know in previous assemblies I've mentioned the idea of assessments taking place. And so now that we have a bit more guidance from the government, given that actually it's not looking likely that you will be back in at a definite point next half term, that we need to still think about how we can provide as much support and also gain any evidence or information as your teachers about how you are doing. All right, so just because you might not necessarily be back in school doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to try and see you as much as we can. Of course, Microsoft Teams is up and running and you should be having live clinics with your teachers in your subjects. If you haven't or you're having any problems with it, please let us know. But it's really important that you do check in with your teachers each week, and just having that nice face-to-face contact, even if it's through a screen, can make such a difference. Okay, so in terms of assessments, you will be having assessments, as I've told you before in assemblies. Now, the reason that we're having these assessments is not to make your life difficult. It is to make sure that we as teachers can gauge where you have made progress across the academic year. Now, we completely understand the difficulties of this time. We are not going to make these assessments something that is out there to find weaknesses or pick up the fact that you've struggled to do work in this really difficult lockdown period. It's literally so we can identify when we do return to normal schooling in September, that what do we need to do to make sure that we are up to speed and can hit the ground running with Year 13 content. So please don't feel anxious. Please don't feel like it's going to be something that causes you a lot of stress. Everyone, your departments, your subjects, your teachers, and us as the sixth form team, we're going to provide the support if you feel like you need it. Right, we've made it nice and clear and obvious about what the next half term looks like, just to make sure that you feel like you've got access to support and you're not going to feel overwhelmed by the things that are going to take place. The first 2 weeks after half term, you're going to have work as per normal. Now, this is for you to have the opportunity to make sure you're prepared for your assessments, to check in with your teachers and be able to use those live clinics on Microsoft Teams to feel like you understand what topics might come up. There might still be some normal work that's set on Show My Homework regarding things that are going to help let you progress into Year 13 next year. But most of it will probably be guided towards your assessments. Now, the following 2 weeks after that, you'll be set no additional work on Show My Homework. All of those 2 weeks are completely focused for you to be completing your assessments. And I'll explain what those assessments might look like in a little bit. So in those 2 weeks, like you would if you had study leave at school normally, the only thing you would need to be doing is your actual assessments that you're set for each of your subjects. And we'll give you a very specific timetable in a moment. Now, following that, you'll have 3 more weeks before the end of the year. Again, we would like to resume our work that's being set on Show My Homework and also to continue running live clinics. You will also, within those 2 weeks, have the opportunity to receive feedback on the assessments that you completed. The first phase of the assessment timeline is the preparation phase, and probably the most important phase. This is where you need to make sure that you're feeling prepared and teachers can support you to make sure that you're as confident as you can and are going to do as well as you possibly could in the assessments that take place. Now, this requires work from yourself and your teachers. Your teachers will make sure that you are feeling supported. They will be setting revision resources and tasks on Show My Homework, as I've mentioned in the first 2 weeks. Make sure you take advantage of these. Make sure you go and complete them so you can identify any areas of weakness you might have leading up to the assessment. Now, also, they will continue to conduct Microsoft Teams live clinics. Take full advantage of those. Use the opportunity to ask your teachers questions, go in and get insights into topics or misconceptions you might have about your subject. The main body of work in preparation, however, is going to come down to you. You need to take advantage of the 2 weeks time you have to go back and look at all of the content from the first year. Now, I know it might seem like a lot and cause a lot of anxiety, but make sure you set out a clear, structured timetable that will allow you to slowly go back over and prepare as well as you can. Now, the second phase is the assessment phase. This is where you will follow a very clearly designed timetable to be able to complete an assessment in each of your subjects. Now, it will take place during weeks 3 and 4 after the half term, between the 15th and the 26th of June. Between those 2 weeks, as I've said previously, you will not be set any work in any of your subjects. It is purely focused around you making sure you've got the opportunity to complete the assessment in the best possible conditions. Now, I do understand life at home might not be easy, so we're going to start to think about how we can make sure we've got the opportunity to complete those assessments in the fairest possible way. Now, as I said, this timetable has been designed so you'll only have a maximum of 1 assessment on a certain particular day. That will give you plenty of opportunity to make sure you understand what's taking place over this 2-week period. Now, in terms of what the assessments might look like, there's probably a lot of questions you have. What are the assessments going to contain? What are they going to look like, given that we're doing them at home rather than in school? Is this a fair system? Now, what you are going to look at is content that's covered before the lockdown took place. At least 80 to 85% of the assessment will be guaranteed that it won't include any topics from the lockdown. Now, that's making sure that we are eliminating any factors that have reduced the opportunity for people to make sure they could complete as much work as possible during this difficult time. So don't panic about that if you don't feel like you're up to date with current content you're learning. It's only going to be on previous work. In terms of what the assessments will look like themselves, each department have been doing a lot of research into working out what type of assessment is both going to benefit you and also benefit them in terms of making sure they can gauge how much progress you've made. There will be a variation of assessment types on a variation of platforms. A lot of it may be open book, in which you'll have an opportunity to use resources as you conduct the assessment. But that's okay. There is a lot of evidence to show that that's still beneficial for teachers. So it's not pointless for us to be conducting these assessments. So as the assessments are going to probably look slightly different or varied in each of your subjects, you need to make sure that you're following any instructions about how to complete it very, very carefully. On the day of your assessment, you must log in to show my homework. Make sure you check your timetable and make note of the days you need to be logging in. When you log in, you'll then clearly have a set of instructions about how to complete it. For some subjects, it might be as simple as downloading something, completing it, and then uploading it again. Some might provide a link for you to go to a different website or an educational platform to complete the assessment there. Whatever it is, make sure you follow the instructions carefully so there's no problems for yourself or for your teachers. Now, part of that is also about making sure you are planning ahead. Make sure you know what days you're going to be completing your assessments and that you have nothing in that day that's going to stop you. If you have any problems or questions about that, you need to speak to your teachers as soon as possible. The final phase of this assessment timeline is the feedback phase, an extremely important phase because this is where your teachers can now start to make judgments about your progress across Year 12. Now, don't fear, it's not for them to identify weaknesses, it's for them to identify areas where support is needed moving into Year 13. Now, as they give that feedback to you, make sure you take it on board. It's something that you can now identify in your learning to start to prepare yourself moving forward as well, especially as we look to eventually moving back into full-time schooling in a physical location. Now, as well as that feedback, you will still have the opportunity to be set and complete more work. This is to make sure that we're trying to minimise the amount of time you lose with your teachers in school. Now, given at the moment you're being set work on Show My Homework by Miss Doyle regarding UCAS and beginning the university application process, you're probably also perhaps aware that exams that take place at this time normally have some sort of weighting towards your predicted grades that go on UCAS. Now, I want to be very clear with you. This is not the case for these assessments. These assessments are not designed to give you your predicted grades. When you return to school, you will then have the opportunity to sit exams under more realistic conditions, where your teachers will have a much better judgment about how you might perform. They will be more influential in creating and giving you your predicted grades. But these still might have some secondary piece of evidence and do provide value to your teachers. So you still need to take them extremely seriously. Now, I just want to reiterate something important that you're probably all thinking. These are being conducted at home. They are most likely going to be open book, or you'll have the opportunity to use resources. Therefore, it's probably also likely you've got a clear opportunity to somehow cheat or make sure you get the answers 100% correct. Now that's fine, that's part of the process. However, do be aware, if you just blatantly go out and make the purpose of not attempting to complete these to the best of your ability with what you can do, and you just simply spend the whole time looking for answers, it's not going to benefit you, it's not going to benefit your teachers. If you come out with an A star or an A, and all you've done is write answers or copy and paste or put answers in that you've acquired, no benefit. Your teacher's going to think you're fine. When you come to next year really struggling, there's not going to be a correlation. Your teacher will be confused, you'll be confused, and it's not going to benefit anyone. So take them seriously. Think about the fact that you've got the opportunity to provide a specific set of data that's valuable to both your teachers and yourself. We want to provide as much support to you as possible, and that can only be done if you take them fairly and seriously. Now, as we move into the half-term break and following that, the 3 assessment phases, these are what your priorities are. Number 1, make sure you are looking at and being aware of what days your assessment's taking place. Mark that down immediately, make sure you clear everything off that day. You need to give yourself every single opportunity to make sure that you can complete it to the best of your ability and be successful. Now, part 2 of that might include you having to work with your families, communicate, make sure that they are aware that you're completing assessments which are really important on those days. There might be things like you having to share a computer, or you having to share a laptop, or struggling accessing particular things, right? Talk with them, make sure they are aware that you need that access on that particular day. I'm sure they'll be very supportive, and as will we if you need any further support in that department. The third thing is making sure that if you have any problems accessing anything, you need to get in contact with us as soon as possible. All right? Show my homework, you must be able to access that. On top of that, again, departments are going to set a variety of assessments. You might need access to other online learning platforms, things like Educate, Seneca. We don't necessarily know yet until you're informed what platform it's going to be set on. So if you can't access anything, you need to email us, loginhelp@thecompton.org.uk as soon as possible so we can clear up any issues you might have. Or you could also speak to individual departments. Finally, get preparing, right? The first phase is extremely important. You need to be making sure you're feeling confident about the topics that might come up. Revise, 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 go back over the content, look at the different learning techniques that you might be needing so that you're feeling as confident as you can, and you and the teachers will get the most out of this assessment period. I wish you all the best of luck, and I hope you have a nice half-term break next week.